Well, if you are joining us this afternoon, or if you're catching up kind of a bit later on, we just want to say welcome to the ELLC's drop-in discussion for the month of December. Hopefully you've had a chance to have a little look at some of our resources that have already been posted on our Facebook page, or you get a chance to do that after this discussion. Maybe we'll poke your curiosity. But you are so welcome here, and we are excited to have a time this afternoon just having a chat together really about what this topic is of the month on work-life balance. My name is Clare Mulroney. I forgot to say that at the beginning. I'm based here in Harpenden on the Wyre base, part of the ELLC team, and it's a real joy every month or so to sit here with people from different places, hearing perspectives on these topics that are empowering us in our leadership around Europe. So today I'm really excited for two wonderful people to be on the panel and joining the discussion. And so I'm not going to introduce them, I'm going to let them introduce themselves before we get stuck into our discussion. So maybe if we go ladies first in the house. Yes. And yeah, over to you.
Okay, I'm Karle Weiderick, and our family are Canadians, and we are currently serving also at YWAM Harpenden. So we've been here for almost a year. It feels like a lot longer with all the lockdowns and different things, but it's been about a year. And we have 3 teenage boys. They're 16, 15, and 13. And we are a family in ministry. And so we are focused mostly on working with youth and discipling some of our younger staff. So that's what we do.
That's great. And where did you mention where you were from originally?
Sorry, we're from Canada.
Yeah, perfect. Great stuff.
Okay, my name is Frederick Kammes, and I am originally from Cape Town, South Africa. I've been in mission since 1984. I've been with OM, WEC, and then with YWAM. The reason why we came to YWAM is that we were in Hernoot, and they asked us to do pastoral care there at the base. But 3 months after that, Frank Bauer asked us if we could do member care for Germany. So we did that, and I'm also the crisis coordinator in member care. That's what I've done.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, what a story.
I'm married. I've got 2 children. They are all, the one is 20, our son is 28, and our daughter is 26. They are married, both married. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. I know, I was going to say that I could just about be your daughter. It's great. I love it. You came into YWAM when I was a tiny person. But I love that. I love that about our mission. I love that we have all generations working together, and especially in moments like this where we get to discuss together, because we come with lots of experience, lots of different perspectives, and yeah, I'm sure you've had lots and lots of experience about this whole topic of work-life balance after working in lots of different missions organizations too. So it's brilliant. I think the thing that struck me when I was looking at some of our resources this month was just how dynamic both of our video contributions were. Like really helpful videos, and well worth watching because they're very concise and to the point, but also just really helpful tools. But maybe, I don't know if either of you, what struck you from, maybe let's go with the video on stress management by Carrie and Catherine. They were a dynamic duo in themselves, presenting, but what was it that struck you from their video around stress management? Because let's be honest, we have probably lived through one of the most stressful 18 months, no matter where we are in the world in this season as leaders. There's been lots of dynamics in addition to just regular life. So what about that video maybe stood out to you?
I know from me, we've been in Harpenden here for 1 year, but before this, we did 20 years of ministry in different organizations and different things. And I hit one point where I definitely, where it shows like the bell curve in their video. I definitely tipped way over the other side, and I was actually sadly excited to see I didn't quite hit burnout. I stopped at full exhaustion. So
it's like a win. You got to full exhaustion, but not burnout.
Yeah, but I love the part where they talked about not necessarily. I always had it in my mind about trying to stay in that optimum level, and I loved how they explained that when you're up there, it's so easy to tip over. And so to actually be healthy and stay on the other side where you're still in your alert and you're efficient and you're all that stuff, but you're not at the top so close to where you could tip over. Yeah. So that was new for me. And coming from that point of hitting the full exhaustion and going through healing back to where I'm functioning well again, and I'm able to do it well again, just that good reminder of this is the place I need to stay so that I don't put myself back in that spot.
Yeah, it was really interesting, wasn't it, to think about it like that. I think a lot of people probably think that we're aiming for optimum, we're aiming to sit at the top of that bell curve, and that really struck me as well, that yeah, to sit on that left hand side is quite different, isn't it, than sitting up at the top.
Yeah.
And actually something that that struck me about that is she talked about, even at the beginning of that video, like you need some stress, but not too much. And actually we're talking about work-life balance. I think I often talk about tension as a good thing. Tension is a thing that builds kind of, in nature, tension creates momentum, it creates a force to move things forward, that kind of thing. And actually to sit, if you think about something sitting on that side, there's going to be a tension, isn't there? You can't just sit, like at the optimum, you can kind of sit there and balance and it's fine, but you coming up the side, you have to hold a lot of things in good tension.
Yeah, and I also think with that, you get different people that also handle tension differently, you know?
Yeah.
And that for me, I'm a person that can really handle stress really good, you know. My wife is different, so how do you, you know, it is just like that, you know. How do you deal with that, you know? Where you know that your stress levels, you're gonna really crack now, you know, but you still want to go, and that is where you need to find actually that balance, you know. And so, hey, it's time for me. My body says no, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite tricky though, eh? It's like, I think in reality, to hold yourself in that place is quite tricky. You really have to know yourself quite well, don't you?
Yeah. But on the other hand, I think today we are so much under pressure to perform, you know.
Yeah.
You know, we must give to our churches, we must write to our supporters, we must just do so much, you know. And that we forget, hey, our body needs that. We need that stress, but our body also needs that rest, you know.
Yeah. There's something when you said that, there's something that Steve Mayers quotes in his article, that progress sabotages margin. It was a quote from somebody else, but it's so true. It really struck home. Just, we live in a culture that is so driven by results and progress and cheap success. You know, we're caught in that trap even within Christian ministry, I believe, at times, where we're always, you know, we're looking for fruitfulness that's like tangible and numbers and all of those things. But it's good to stop and think about, like, what are we sabotaging in that place? Like, and I think margin and rest and that space of knowing is quite, it's challenging. It's really right.
I find I've had to learn to like, one of the videos talked about living sacrificially, and so having that place of knowing, okay, I have so much that I have to do, so this is how much space I have left to put in what I'd like to do. And then sometimes having to give up something that I would like to do because maybe my boys would like my time, and like still making sure I'm putting time for myself to be healthy and all that stuff, but just like everything takes time. Everything, like they said, everything, that piece of pie, you can't add extra pie to the pie. You can only take from it. And
you
so
mean you can't stack them up. You can't get more
Yeah. Yeah.
that'd be fun to see. But yeah, so if I have this that I absolutely have to do, then I have to stop and look at how much time and how much energy and how much capacity I have left, and then make my decisions from there. And sometimes I have to say no to something that I think would be really fun to do, but doesn't fit. And so it's that learning to say no and to be okay with saying no. And yeah, learning that maybe I can't at this time, but maybe I can do that. I can make it a priority for my next, like down the road when I have more time and capacity and stuff like that. So yeah, making those choices.
Yeah.
Karle, I know that you have your own personal story with this joyous topic. I don't know if you're up for it or not, but maybe you could just share a little bit of your story in learning how to say no the hard way. Just because I think it's real story, and it's really impactful.
Well, my husband Mark and I, we were directors for years at a camp, and he developed epilepsy. And so as they upped his medicine, it lessened some of the capacity of what he was able to do as part of our job. We co-led. And so when we started, we also home educate our 3 boys. And our oldest boy also has some special needs. And so he was 3/4 kind of doing the ministry side, and I was 1/4, and then I was mostly at home. And as his capacity changed with what he was able to do, I just slowly added myself to taking on a lot of those roles until I was doing full-time mom, full-time teaching, and pretty much full-time directing. So I had 3 full-time jobs. And God moved us out of that, and we thought we were going somewhere else, and God closed that door. And so we ended up in a different part of our ministry, and God gave me a season of rest. And I knew I was stressed, and I just kept saying yes, yes. Like everything that I saw, if I saw a box that needed to be picked up, I never stopped and asked God if I was supposed to pick it up. I just picked it up because it needed picked up. And I was just so overdone that when God took us out of that spot, for 4 months, I slept for about 10 hours every night and 4 hours every afternoon, and had trouble putting thoughts together and doing what I needed to do. And then as God brought me out the other side, he started showing me all the things that I picked up that he never asked me to pick up, but I just did it because they were there and I knew I could do them. But looking back, I realized I didn't do them well because I picked up so many things. And so coming out the other side and learning to be healthy again is learning, as I see something that needs picked up, is, okay, God, first of all, is that something you have for me? And if it is, in what capacity? And what can I add right now? What can I maybe add later? Like, what is for me to pick up now, and what is for me to set aside? And so even handing over some of the home education to my husband. And so just learning what I can, I guess, delegate, what I can allow my boys to do for themselves, because they are getting older, and I don't have to be the micromanaging mom who does everything, and I can hand some stuff back to them. And so, yeah, just learning that I have to say no so that I can say yes.
Yeah.
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 So good.
Yeah, I think on that one, it's really good that you brought up the one with the pie, because the one with the pie for me is like, it's part of the of what we are doing. But sometimes, like myself, I realized, although I was in ministry, there was still some holes in my pie. So that means, how can I be effective if there's still some holes in my pie?
Yeah.
And what I've learned over the years, not my monkeys, not my zoo.
I love it. I love it.
Not my monkeys, not my zoo, but that was a real process, because I'm a go-getter. I want to get stuff done. And when I was single, you can do that, you are free. You want to just motor, but when I got family, it whole changed, because the guy from WEC International said us, it's God, your family, and then the ministry. And we had then evaluation, which was really good. They would come every 6 months and see how you are doing personally. Accountability. That's also part of leadership. You need to be accountable in God's kingdom. And many people said, I don't need that, but that is for your own benefit. I had people that mentored me in this whole aspect, and that was good for me. That was so good for me. And now my wife got diagnosed with cancer for the last 21 years. So that has changed my whole perspective on how to balance, how to balance it out. Where do you trust God? Because you're in his ministry. And as you get older in missions, your responsibility becomes bigger. It is just like that, And where do you find that balance? How do you like learn to say no?
Yeah.
Because, I find that you get leaders that can really abuse you spiritually, And I actually have a book here. It's called The Subtle Power of Spiritual Abuse, And that is really a good book to understand, I can say no.
Yeah.
I know there was one point a while ago where my youngest son, I had my list of everything I had to do today, and I definitely didn't set myself any margins. Like, this is everything I have to get done, is like 12 hours of things to do in like 7 hours. And
Karle.
Yeah.
I was home for a little bit of time, and my youngest son was probably like 8, and he just said, can you sit with me while I empty the dishwasher? And my initial thought was like, no, like, you can do it by yourself. And but the still small voice said, sit with him. So I sat down with him, and he just quietly, he didn't talk to me for like the first 5 minutes. He just emptied. And then all of a sudden he looked over at me and he said, how do I know that my faith is real? And all of a sudden he just started sharing his heart, and just like, we had this amazing talk, and his faith got deep, and it was neat. And as I walked away, I was just like, thank you, Lord, for catching me. And like, everything else I had to do today was way less on the importance in eternity scale compared to that 15-minute talk with him. And so I think that whole learning, like you said, learning to listen to your body, like learning to know ourselves really well, and then being really sensitive to that still small voice of what is for me to. I think for me, that helps me learn to say no, is trying to be more and more inviting God into my day, instead of just going down my list of to-dos, but to keep checking in with him throughout the day. And but when we don't set margins, we don't leave him room to interrupt our day either.
And the thing on that is, like, I mean, if you want to go to the bathroom, you must go to the bathroom. So if a child needs you, he needs you now. He doesn't need you 3 minutes later, and that we have to learn. Children, we only have them for a short time. And that's so important, that we need to realize, if like what you did was really good, I mean, that was a really good example for me, They need us now and not when we have time.
It strikes me that I think the pie illustration is really helpful, isn't it? Because in a way, the pie is less about like a balancing scale, which I think sometimes can lead us off course in this thought. But just recognizing we're a whole person, and in the pie, all the ingredients are needed to make it a delicious, tasty pie, right? Like to make our life full and fruitful and alive, we need all the parts. And I know I'm super grateful. I've got a few people in my life who say to me on a regular basis, Claire, what did you do for fun recently? What did you do to fill the creative part of your soul?
Yeah.
Because they know I'm like, that gets the slither of the pie gets really, really thin. And yet that's the thing that often will fill up my fill up my soul again and allow me to bring the best part to the rest of my pie, which is mainly serving my family and the ministry that I'm involved in. But the other thing that strikes me is, and I think this really transformed my ability to say yes and no, is I think for a long time as a younger leader, I felt like being servant-hearted and wanting to give my life to Jesus meant I just need to keep saying yes and doing all the things because it's just about loving Jesus. And if I love this person, I'm going to say yes. And if I want, if I want to serve this person, I'll say yes.
Mm-hmm.
But as I have gone through seasons of realizing you can't just say yes to everything, but also on the other scale, realizing that you can easily go to the other extreme and just make the assumption that it's a no, I don't have time for that. Yeah. And I think there was a phrase that really struck me a few years ago, and it was the only assumption to hold is the assumption to ask Jesus what he thinks and to ask him what his invitation is. So, and to trust his answer in that, right? Like, so it really changed my, am I supposed to say yes or no? And it gave me confidence when I said no, that I was saying no, because it's probably the best I don't do it. There's probably somebody else that needs to do it, or saying yes and realizing I can push myself a little bit this week and actually, I can squeeze this in and it's okay. And I think it's that, just not deciding in advance, assuming what our answers need to be, but really learning that collaboration, that partnership with the voice of the Holy Spirit in everyday life is so transformational, isn't it? Which is probably why we are so big on teaching hearing the voice of God from the beginning of our DTSs. But yeah, it's helpful to kind of wrestle with this, isn't it? The yes and let your yes be yes and your no be no, and be confident in those, knowing that you know yourself. And that, I think I can't remember what it was in, but somewhere in all of these resources, I loved it when someone said, you will disappoint people, and you will you'll have to face other people's reactions, and that's okay. It's okay to sometimes disappoint people, and it's okay to have to let people think differently than you. But again, I guess if it's based in that sense of like you've partnered with the Lord, then
Yeah, and what I also think, YWAM is a very extrovert organization, a lot of extroverts, So, and that is what I sometimes find a bit hard to tell people, hey, you must go find the balance, What I've done in the two previous organizations, I wrote my job description myself. And because when you leave YWAM, people don't have the records, and that is where you can say, this is what I'm doing, this is my job description, and you can present it to your leaders, because then I know many people can also abuse that, this is not my job, it can go to the other extreme, and that's why accountability is so important. And I think we must also push those people a little bit and say, but you can do that, but guide them, and also, because I think the introvert sometimes in this organization is also sometimes left out, and that we also need to find a place for them between work and their private life, and that there's also a place for them, that's all part of that big picture.
Yeah, for sure.
There's definitely seasons of busier, and there's seasons of quieter, and learning to embrace both. And for those of us who like to be busy, when God gives us a quiet season, to learn to enjoy the quiet season and embrace the quiet season, and not fill it full of things that aren't in there. We feel very called to open our house to people, and we have some of the young staff over quite often. But like you said, our youngest is an introvert's introvert. And so to honor him, every now and then somebody will say, hey, can I come over? And you like, no, he needs a quiet house tonight, but we'd love to have you over next week. And so just learning to, and my husband's also an introvert. So just, just learning to be like, okay, we're kind of peopled out. So we love you, we appreciate you, but no, not tonight. And then if it's like an urgent, hey, they need to have a connection time, then I might just go meet them for coffee or something. But to make sure that the other ones have that space that they need to also renew and be able to give well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clear communication is another key to this whole topic, right? And we talked a lot about that last month around emotional intelligence, a key ingredient for leadership in the 21st century, and how just knowing yourself enables you to know how to know others well, and communicate. Everything comes back to good communication, right? Like being able to clearly communicate with people in a loving but clear way that says, you know, I love you, and I need space tonight, or you know, like it's so good.
I think the cultural stuff is also coming in there, you know, because we are from so many different cultures, you know. So that we need also to take in consideration, you know, the different cultural aspects, you know. What is for people time out, and where does people get the energy from? It's a whole dynamics which we have. I mean, I get my energy from being with people, you know, and others need their time, you know. So we need to look at our staff. Where do they get the energy, and when do they need their rest?
And I love what you said, Karle. Even like it's knowing yourself, and when you're in a family, it's knowing your family. Like I'm like Karle, my husband's an introvert, and we had to learn very quickly in the beginning of our marriage. Like I could have people over all the time, and he's like, whoa. Like, and so, but it's learning to honor one another in that, and coming up with systems within a family of how to communicate needs and wants and function in a way that allows everybody to come to life, right? So that, because I think there's this work-life balance as an individual, and there's a work-life balance in the corporate of a family. I think it also goes to our YWAM bases, like the culture on our bases. How do we cultivate culture that is life-giving in the way that we work and celebrate life, and keep people accountable to be working hard but playing hard, all of those dynamics. It's easy to come solo to it, but I think it's very corporate dynamic that we need to wrestle with as leaders as well, isn't it?
Well, I know even one of the teams that I'm on, obviously in September, getting the kitchen geared up was very, very busy and very, and we had some members of our team who were thinking about it all the time, and we had others who were like, I need to not hear from any of you for like a few days. And so just having that communication and just saying, okay, for you guys, you can go full bore and you feel healthy in that. For these ones, they don't feel healthy just having it there all the time. So how can we as a team, how can we communicate, and how can we do this so that we're all working together and we're balanced and we're healthy and we're actually enjoying being together as a team? And so, so it was just learning what part do we leave work aside, and then we work on just life, talk about just how are you doing just in life, and forget what we have to do, and let's also focus on that too. So it was just like you said, having that communication and just getting to know each other, and where too much is too much, and that kind of stuff. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It's
cultivate that culture, you know. We need to cultivate that culture, you know. It's, you know, and that takes time, and we also take energy out of us to cultivate the culture like that.
But it's more enjoyable when you do.
As leaders, I think it's really important. I think I was really struck with reading this stuff, how easy it is to think about it just as you, a person. And what struck me most is how, like, taking these principles that are for us as individuals, but as leaders of teams, leaders of communities, like, how do we model this on a personal level, but how do we cultivate our bases, our teams, to create margin? I loved what Steve Mayer said about I think it was the LDC course that he's running, and how they just, they put these 15-minute margins into the schedule. Like, we're so classic, we've got this, again, attention in YWAM of like the activator, apostolic, let's move forward, let's make things happen. And yet we have all these people that we need care, we need people to walk beside, everyone's on their own discipleship journey too. So these are all good tensions, but how we schedule things, how we structure things, all of those things come back to this stuff, doesn't it? And I think it's the challenge for us as leaders to think about how we incorporate this into a community setting to create healthy community.
And also in a flat structure,
all in a flat structure. So true, so true. Yeah.
I do. The other thing that I thought was really neat with that bell curve was, like you said, we need to encourage those who maybe aren't doing enough.
Yeah.
That because if you're unbalanced in the fact that you have too much free time and you're not actually, then I can't remember what they all were, but it was like frustration and rest out and
you have no energy.
Yeah, they have no energy. And so I know I've talked to some young staff who are like, I just feel like I'm left. I'm like, well, then maybe you need to like say yes to more things, and you're balanced too much on the time and not enough on the do time. And so so I think it's important that we aren't overly committing ourselves, but we also make sure we're not underly committed. Like, we have to have that right tension.
Yeah, definitely. Because it gives you life, doesn't it? If you've got your pies filled, if your slices of the pie are filled up, there's life that comes from that.
Yeah. I think go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think what I also realized then, I had to deal with my own stuff first also.
Yeah.
Because you can only take people as far as yourself have gone. And that is, and I thought, how can I be in a position of leadership and I still are broken within myself, and I had to deal with my stuff. I had to really deal with my stuff and say, God, I need to be the person that you want me to be. But God had to broke me, he had to really prune me down. And I think that's also part of trying to find your balance, you need to have time for yourself. And and for me, that is sometimes hard, when God is dealing with you as a leader. I think I want to cry now, but I think it's just so important that we know that we need pruning.
Yes.
We need pruning, and if God prunes us, we can be better leaders and be transparent and be open and honest in our life and in our ministry. And I think that's also part which I think it's so important for me personally.
Yeah.
To look into myself and see where can I change.
And I think that's where it's so important to have those people who we are open and honest with and know us well, like where he said, like, losing your balance, that you lose the ability to walk in the fruit of the Spirit. And you need to have those people in your life that can call you on that. And that you can also confess if you're struggling with stuff. Like you need that, those inner ones that you can connect with, and that they have the freedom to say, hey, I'm seeing that this isn't quite what it's supposed to be, and to humble ourselves to accept that from them. That's because I think we wouldn't get down so far many roads if we had those people who could call us and stuff, and that that they did. And it's like, hey, I noticed, your joy is missing. What's going on? And stuff like that. So
no, really important. And I think yeah, I mean, the principle of always in leadership, right, is that we're always on a journey. We're always hopefully continuing to deal. We're always going to have stuff to deal with internally and continue to grow. The minute we stop that, there's a massive alarm bell going off. But yeah, I loved Henry's video. I thought it was brilliant because I love it because it's not just like a 5-system alert system of like, I started imagining like one of those movies with a like going down the levels. High alert, she's gonna collapse into a small heap. But in all seriousness though, I love it because he brings the strategy for each one, and I think it fits really well with a lot of practices which we're putting into practice as leaders anyway to try and prevent us from going down these routes. But I thought it's interesting on this topic where we've been talking about, you know, working too much or too little. I actually loved what he said about he's talking about one of the strategies, you know, you have medical care for illness and rest when you know your health is going down, and there's a reduction in the amount that you need to do when you're experiencing less performance and energy is disappearing. And then he talked about the sacrificial living to reinstate basically mental well-being. And it just a little story of my own that back at the beginning of 2020, I was absolutely exhausted, and I'd got into that. I just was eating poorly, feeling rubbish, and all of those things. And I went on a 30-day, like kind of quite extreme, healthy living, healthy eating regime, kind of like a Whole30. And it was really fascinating because just the simple act of walking through having to say no to a lot of unhealthy food going in my body and saying yes to the right kind of fuel, the discipline of doing something really physical with food, it like transformed my kind of hearing God's voice again. Like I could not believe how just making one simple choice in the physical for my body, like brought to life my quiet times with the Lord. Like the whole thing, it was something about the sacrifice of having to say no in this one area allowed life to be birthed in a different area. And I remember saying at the time, I don't understand, this is like crazy, but it's like fasting, right? Like fasting or any of those disciplines, they bring a kind of just a newness of life into our system. So that really struck me when he was talking about sacrificial living. Like we put that back in, we make choices to start a new habit, or to, you know, start running, or to, I don't know, get up earlier, or whatever those things are. And I don't think we often think about that. We often think about rest, probably, that we need to take a longer rest, or we need to reduce some things in our schedule. Those are the natural things. But the thought of actually putting something in that is going to be sacrificial was kind of, it just struck me. Mm-hmm. I don't know if any of that video was anything in that system, or those strategies were standing out to either of you.
Well, it was funny when he said that part. I was the one that got me was the getting up earlier. Is in September, I felt very clearly from God that I was supposed to start getting up earlier, this specifically for this quarter. And the last 3 weeks, we had a break. I don't remember what it was, but we had a break from something. And it, I think it was maybe Thanksgiving or whatever it was. But I started sleeping in because I was like, I had really bad nights of sleep. And so I just was like, you know, I need to be smart and sleep in and catch up on some sleep. And then I noticed I haven't recovered from that. I'm still very tired. But I feel when he said that, I felt like God was like, I asked you to get up. And before that, even when I struggled with sleep, I always had enough energy for the day. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like that it was kind of God saying, you're giving me that extra bit of sleep, but I'm going to sustain you. And when I realized when he said that, it just made me think back. And I was like, when I took that back from him, now I'm tired all the time again, even though I'm getting more sleep. So it was just kind of a check about like, oh yeah, I was supposed to give that up. And what a difference it does make when you do that sacrifice, how you do get that, like my devotions haven't been quite as good since I started sleeping in, and I'm just tireder and different things, and it's just like, I really need to get back to that.
Yeah, for me it's a bit different because I'm not a person that like to sit down and read. Okay, I more listen to music or through the headphones. I like reading, but not too much, you know. So what I did, I actually decided, because I love nature, so I decided to get up early and ride bicycle. And what I also did, when I go to shopping, I don't take the car, I walk.
Yeah.
And that's my time I spend with God, and that's also how I process.
Yeah.
I mean, to take the car goes quicker, but to walk, it takes longer, so you have to plan that, you know. And that's how I actually spend my time. I like to read stuff in the internet, but my time with God, it has been really great, just walking in the nature, praying, sitting down when I walk and listen to him.
Yeah, so good. So much in there. I mean, the video itself just is like, again, if you're watching this, you need to go watch these videos. They were so good and so full of helpful things to help us all do like checkups on ourselves, look at reprioritizing things, so practical. But I'm conscious of time, but I wanted us to touch quickly on, there was the other article about this work-life balance with family, doing family in ministry. All of us are parents on this talk, and so we've all, I'm sure, had varying degrees of maybe success or failure at trying to do ministry with our kids involved. I know in this house I've had times when they've loved it, times when they've gone like, please don't make me do this. But maybe Freddie, you've been in a long time and you've got grown-up children, you're a little ahead of the game from Karle and I. Like, what has been your experience in trying to create a good rhythm of family and ministry that's integrated, that's not kind of compartmentalized?
Yeah, I think we actually were with Back International, but then you went to South Africa, and we were 2 years in South Africa. Then my wife got diagnosed with cancer, first time. So then it was really difficult for me then to, how do I balance this in my head? The doctor said maybe she's going to die. And how do I balance that? And then the organization was really good. They said, you spend time now with your children, you do everything with the children. And when she came back, I also realized I need to spend time with them. So I was trying, my work didn't get priority, it was the family. So I would go with the family and do my work then later, at night or whenever. And that was really good, you know. When my wife got cancer the second time, they said, well, she's only going to live 3 months. Wow. So what is going through your mind with that, you know? We have 2 small children, you know, I have to tell the children. So that was another phase of my life that I had to struggle with God.
Yeah.
I had to struggle with myself. You know, where do I trust God? Where's the work? And sadly, the church did not really help. The church was just praying, God's going to heal her. And I thought, I don't need that. No, but there was a doctor who was not a Christian who helped me. You know, who helped me through the process. You know, and there is where I got actually my strength from during this time, you know. But God carried us through that. And now when the cancer came back, this is the 4th time, our children is out of the house, they're married. now we have a different perspective, you know, my responsibility has changed. I can do what I want and also be there for her on a different level.
Yeah.
But it was important that I was there for the children. I mean, I watched everything with them, you know, I explained to them everything. They were open to us. And that is really, really good, because I didn't want to hear that the children say, you were too busy with God's work and never had time for us.
Yeah.
And that was, I think that was just what happened with us. And now, although my wife still has the cancer, but I can handle it differently, you know. I can see it from a different perspective, and we can talk as a family together about that. But I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the leaders from WEC International. I'm thankful for the people in YWAM, for Frank Bauer, and people that stood behind us and help us through that process, you know.
Yeah. It's
So,
recognizing the seasons, isn't it? That
yeah, exactly.
you have to adjust accordingly. Life, you never know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
And the ability to flex
Yeah.
with what comes is really important.
Yeah. And also, what happened with me, I was for 6 weeks in a clinic because it affected me that badly. You know, and I think many Christians don't want to say we go to a clinic, you know. But it's, as leaders, I think you smile, you laugh, and it's important to know then there's a problem that you need to go there, you know.
Yeah, there's no shame in that, is there? And I think that's I think one of these people mentioned that, like, it's really important to name things and just to be honest about them and get the help that you need in the season that you're in.
And I'm honest, I'm on antidepressants also, because it states that it was too much for me for the last 20 years, you know. Just to be there for the children, the family, you know.
It's a lot.
And I think the time here in Germany is also good for me to do my work and know I can do what I can do, you know. And there's no pressure, you know.
Yeah, so good. Thank you. That's really wonderful for you to share that with us. So much richness in there. What about you, Karle? I know you guys are committed to mission as family. I've been in awe watching you come to YWAM Harpenden, and I can be a witness to their ability to do mission as family.
Well, I think I love how you brought in seasons, and so like, because we didn't have kids till we were already in ministry for 8 years. And so it was actually almost a grieving process when I had kids and had to stay home. Because I saw Mark out there doing what I was passionate about. And I was at home with 3 little kids who were crying. And I had to actually, somebody actually told me, they're like, you actually have to grieve what you're missing right now. And you have to allow yourself to understand that it is hard. And I had somebody else come up and say, stop trying to survive these years and ask God to help you thrive. And so you don't want to look back and say, I survived having 3 babies. Is like, I thrived having those 3 babies, and what can I do to thrive? And so I loved, but even as our boys got older and I got back into doing more outside the home, we did fall into the whole mom and dad doing stuff. And it was actually our boys who said, we feel like God's calling us to be a part of stuff too. It's not just mom and dad. And so we actually did a 21-day lunch fast as a family and asked God what he had for us as a family. And at the end, we came out with, we are a mission-minded family. And so that was what our boys, and then since then, it's been very much an ownership thing, and it's a culture we talk about in the home that this is what we're going to do, and it is finding that balance of inviting them in and planning stuff together, but also not pushing it on them. And so if it's like something that is just really they're not in for, I don't want it to be a negative thing. So trying to find the balance of, okay, it's a base work day. Because we home educate, it's like you can pick. Do you want to help around on the base and be a blessing? Do you want to stay home and do school? They pretty much always work day.
I bet they do.
But when they're out there, we make sure that they're not with us. And so we get them plugged in on different teams where they're actually getting to serve with other people on the base. And each of our boys have their own place on the base that they're plugging into and being a part of their own ministry here. And so, and just trying to like go on outreaches as a family and just trying to continue to just our whole, I guess how we talk is it's who we are. And so it's not just something we do every now and then, it's who we are. And so I think that's really helped. I like when the family and life ministry article that you were talking about, I like how he said it's God first, God second, God third, God everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I think that was one thing I needed to learn, is that when I was at home with the kids, it was still a ministry. It wasn't like I gave up ministry because now I have a family. It was just kind of like, okay, so now I have a new ministry, and it's ministry takes part in the home, outside the home, in relationship. And so I think for me, that was really important thing for me to wrap my head around, as far as having the family part. And just that we're not called to sacrifice our family for ministry, but learning that there are seasons, and some seasons are going to be busier, some seasons are going to be lighter, some seasons we're going to be at home more. Obviously this last season we were all at home for a lot, in chunks. And so just I guess for me that was it, was more just learning what the season is and being okay with whatever the season is, and how do we thrive in that season, and how do we include the family and not just make it an addition, an afterthought of how do we make the kids fit in here, but how do we find a ministry that works for our family.
Yeah.
I have one question. How did you do it with homeschooling? How was that for you? I mean, having all the 3 kids at home, and how did you and your husband try to fit that together with homeschooling,
Well, we're currently doing it. It's just, well, like next quarter, I'm also gonna do the 1-year program that
spiritual formations program.
And discipleship. And so for that, with home education, I teach math to the boys. So it's just, we sat down as a family on Saturday and looked over the whole from January to July. And then we blocked out, okay, so what days do we want to do school? What days do we not want to do school? And then how do we make it so that we accomplish everything we need to? So a lot of it is just a lot of planning. And I like, somebody said once, you take a jar and you put the big rocks in first, the things that have to be blocked out, and then you can put some of the medium-sized rocks, and then you put the sand. And so I think that's how we make home educating work, is we kind of have to, you cannot fly by the seat of your pants, but you have to also fly by the seat of your pants. That's good.
So good.
Yeah, you got to do both.
Yeah.
You got to be unflexible and completely flexible all at the same time.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, isn't it, when we talk about family in our work-life balance, because I feel like there have been seasons when I've thought about, again, it's in extremes, like, oh, we should be doing everything with our kids in ministry and should integrate them into everything. And I watch families that appear to do that in awe, and their children are all on board. And then you see families where it's all very separate and all of those things. And but I think it's this tension, it's this balance of the two, isn't it? Where I think in our family, I've got 4 children, and who are 10 to 15 in the current moment. And I think we've realized that you have to know your kids a little bit, like you forcing them to be a part of things that they either don't understand or they don't actually want to be of is it doesn't help. It's not, it's inviting them to be part of things and saying, hey, you want to come with me on this? Do you want to do this with me? But I think one of the things that we've learned in our family is the importance of our family table at the end of the day. Like Steve and I do different things in the day with YWAM. Our kids go to different schools. And I think the grounding space for our family is around the dinner table at night, and learning to share the stories of the day from what I do in YWAM and what Steve does in YWAM, and bringing the kids into that, and not being afraid to share the stories and hear their stories, and kind of bring them in, like, hey, you can pray with mum about this thing that's happening or that thing, or and then having the opportunities to bring them on board with things. But I know in our family, like one of our kids for a season, she really loves leading worship. But there was a season where I felt like the Lord said to me, don't push her to be involved. Like, let her take a step back, because I want it to be authentic. I want her heart. I want, an authentic version. I don't want her just to copy what she's seeing, like out of I should do this because I'm in a ministry family and I should stand on the stage and do these things. And so I think it's this, again, it's just the wisdom and the voice of the Lord in our families, right? Like to hear him for our own kids, not to compare to another family and think that's the only way to do it, but really seek the wisdom of the Lord as parents for our individual children, and as a family, that we language. I love that. We are a missional minded family, and we often say in ours, the Mulroneys do it like this. The Mulroney, we're a team Mulroney, and we have many flavors in our family, but we're in it together. So,
and one thing that we tried to do with our kids is have them find their own passion and get to know themselves and where God has gifted them. And so our 3 boys all serve in different areas. Well, 2 of them are in the same right now.
Yeah.
Like our oldest did a missions trip this summer with our base, and realized he has a gift of hospitality, and he's so excited to be serving in the cafe as a volunteer. And that's it's totally filling his heart. Our middle son has a heart for children, and so he's helping with our local Oval Kids program. And our youngest son, he has a heart for media, and so he's plugging in with some of the guys with media on the base. And so not just plugging them in for the sake of having them do stuff, but for them finding where their gifts are and then helping them find that place. I think we made a mistake earlier by being like, okay, let's just plug into everything, and then they get overdone and they just don't enjoy it. And so it's more so finding out where they fit and then helping them find that spot.
And another thing on that is sometimes we as parents, we want to let the children fit into what we want them to be, I remember our children, we let them explore what they want to do. And also when they were 16, we said to them, it's your choice if you want to go with us to church or not. And don't force them, you know, and it was okay,
I think it's bringing them into that conversation, isn't it? And the thing that grounds me as a parent, and when I want to if I start to worry or think, oh my gosh, will they do this or that or whatever, it always grounds me just to remember that God is passionately pursuing them as much and way more than I ever could or would. And he just loves our kids and he loves our families and he's for them and he's drawing them in, and he has a plan for each of them, right? Like to be part of his global mission, but just to know that he's on the agenda of pursuing their hearts and drawing them into what they're good at is always a grounding moment for me, where stress would like to enter and be like, what is going to happen? But our time, look at this, we are at 3:00. Time flies when you're having fun. It's been a great conversation this afternoon. Thank you to both of you for coming. You both have a wealth of experience, and we're just really grateful for your contributions. And I guess also I just want to say to anyone who's watching, we hope that you have a wonderful Christmas season. May this couple of weeks ahead bring lots of rest and recuperation and lots of fun, and filling the slices of your pie this Christmas, so that you can start into 2022 refreshed and ready to go. But we're excited. We will be back in January with a new theme, and new resources and a new topic. And I believe Miranda Heathcott will be hosting this drop-in discussion in January. But from us today, we bless you, and yeah, thank you so much for joining us.